Trump and the media are feuding again. CNN accuses Trump of online bullying after attack on Don Lemon. Bullying, huh? So here's what Trump said. Another false story, this time in the failing New York Times, that I watch 4 to 8 hours of television a day. Wrong. Also, I seldom, if ever, watch CNN or MSNBC, both of which I consider fake news. I never watched Don Lemon, who I once called the dumbest man on television. Bad reporting. So that's classic Trump flying off the handle, being embarrassing. CNN responded to this, though, and they said, in a world where bullies torment kids on social media to devastating effect on a regular basis with insults and name-calling, it is sad to see our president engaging in the very same behavior himself. Leaders should lead by example. Okay, so should Trump fucking reel it in, son? Reel it in. Reel it in. Reel it in. You're the president. Reel it in. The answer to that is obviously. We don't even need to belabor this point because it's just so clear. You're a goofball. You're a goofball and you're embarrassing. And I think most reasonable Americans are embarrassed by Trump. You know, I really do believe that. Now, but here's where I part from the media. I am so tired of the fucking holier-than-thou attitude. I really am. So listen, on principle, I will always defend the media from attacks on them by the government, by the president, by members of the legislative branch, because we have the First Amendment, so they have a right to say whatever they want to say, okay? But at the same time, that doesn't mean you're incapable of making mistakes, and that also doesn't mean that every point you make makes sense, because it doesn't. So, for example, there's now been a litany of cases where on the Trump-Russia story, there was, yes, a fake report, or at the very least, just an inaccurate report. So, one example was CNN reported that WikiLeaks contacted Donald Trump's son to give Trump's son the DNC leaks before the general public had it. And the media narrative was, this is collusion between WikiLeaks and Trump and the Trump campaign, and really it's collusion between WikiLeaks or the Trump campaign and Russia, because WikiLeaks got those DNC leaks from Russia. So they thought, that's it, smoking gun, it's over. Now, by the way, that has not been proven that WikiLeaks got their DNC emails from Russia. That has not been proven. There was a fake talking point going around, 17 different intelligence agencies. That was totally debunked. It's not true, okay? But they thought they got him. Hey, WikiLeaks the Trump campaign colluding with Russia. But guess what? We learned that indeed that didn't happen. A random person emailed Trump Jr. the DNC leaks from WikiLeaks after they had been released to the public. So it wasn't before. It wasn't like, here's collusion and we're going to let you in on this beforehand. It was after it had already been released, and a random person, nobody even knows who the person is, emailed it to Donald Trump Jr. and said, hey, look at this. Story was totally fake. There was another, what was it, an ABC reporter was released because he did a bullshit Trump-Russia story. So when that happened, you are, unfortunately, showing that sometimes when Trump screams fake news, he's right. The news is not right. That's not correct. The things you argued were not correct. So there should be a little bit of fucking humility when that happens. Now, again, I will always defend the media on the broader point, which is, hey, people in the government, like Trump threatened to de-license news agencies because they report on stories he doesn't like. Come on, man. Get the fuck out of here. We have the First Amendment. We have the Constitution. Shut the fuck up with your anti-media nonsense. Even if they report shit that you don't like, doesn't matter. They have a right to do that. So Trump is a threat to the First Amendment. I want to be clear. But at the same time, I hate these fucking holier-than-thou responses from CNN. You are bullying our good reporter, Mr. President. He's not bullying him. He's not. Somebody can call somebody a dumbass. You know, again, you could say, hey, he's the president. That's not presidential. True, it's not presidential. But that's where it ends. It's not like that's not presidential and, oh, you've bullied our reporter. Because you know what happens? And I know this is the case because it happens with me, and I despise Trump, but this happens with me. I roll my eyes when I read a response like this. Because this is CNN dishing it, but they can't take it. So this is CNN going, Donald Trump is destroying this country. He's unfit to be president. He's a terrible person. And Trump goes, yeah, well, I think one of your reporters is dumb. Oh! That is, you crossed the line, sir. You know what it comes across as? Weak. It comes across as weak and sniveling. So, you get to fucking lambast him all day, but when he says something, which, by the way, is somewhat true about Don Lemon. I don't think he's the dumbest person on television, but I don't think he's smart. Sorry, I don't. This is the guy who said fucking the Malaysian plane got lost in a black hole, maybe. Hey, just floating the idea. Who says that? You know who says that? A person who's not intelligent. That's who says that. So when Trump says that, and you respond by, basically the point CNN is trying to make here is, oh my goodness, our bully president is doing something that 100% of people should be against. In other words, you're trying to say this is not debatable. You're not allowed to respond to our hosts like this. But actually, you know what? It is debatable, and 100% of people are not going to agree with you. And to conflate, like, genuine bullying with a grown-ass man who's a journalist lobbing bombs at the president all day long, and the president throws one back at him, to act like, you know, shocked over that, and, oh, I am offended, that you come across as weak babies and sniveling, conniving bastards who can dish it all day, but you can't take it. Now, again, anytime Trump tries to imply legal consequences, which he does, delicensing or, you know, what was there were other anti-First Amendment things he did. He said that we should ban flag burning, for example, which is deeply against the First Amendment. He's not for a free press. That's clear. If he had his way, we would be more of a dictatorship, and he would just be able to shut down fucking outlets he doesn't like. If that were the case, I would immediately, vociferously defend the media as I have in the past. But can you just not be super douchey? Like, we get it. He's a douche. Trump's a douche. Got it. But would it really have been that difficult to not respond when Trump said, oh, dumbest fucking CNN, fake news, dumbest person on television, Don Lemon? What if you didn't respond? Or what if, here's an idea, you want to know what response? I would have said, that's a good response. What if CNN basically responded and said, we think you're dumb? Something to that effect. Like, it's funny that this president would call our host dumb when he says he uses the best words or something like that. I'm struggling to come up with the exact way of wording it. But if they were to effectively argue, it's ironic that you're calling somebody else dumb, I'd be like, yeah, you nailed it on that. But I don't like the fucking, I don't know, it just strikes me as weak and sniveling when you're like, you're a bully, sir. Because again, if we can rightly go after Trump in the most vicious ways imaginable, which I'm in favor of, well, then you can't say when he responds in a way that's somewhat vicious, yeah, you've crossed the line. You can't do it. You can't do it. So, I don't know. You know, I think the overarching point is this. We have a mainstream media in the U.S. that cheerleaded for the war in Iraq. They fired people who were against the war in Iraq. Ask Phil Donahue about that. Okay? So, we have a media that pushed the propaganda of the Bush administration, no questions asked. The media called torture enhanced interrogation because the Bush administration wanted them to do so. We have a giant propaganda outlet that's corporate media in this country. They represent the establishment. They always do a shitty job. And so when they try to be holier than thou, that's what gets under my skin. Because the reality of the situation is a petty authoritarian should not be able to shut them down, of course. But that also doesn't mean they're right about stuff across the board, because they're not. And that's the sense you get from the points that they make when they respond like this, you know? When, unfortunately, it's been far too common that they try to prove Trump's point when he screams fake news at them all day, and then it's a every week occurrence that they, botch some major story that always exaggerates the Trump-Russia thing, for example. Glenn Greenwald had a great piece on that, too, by the way. I recommend you check it out. They really, really have repeatedly fucked up that story, and in a climate where Trump always screams fake news, you should probably be extra careful to make sure your reporting is right. But you don't do that. You never did that. So enough with the holier-than-thou nonsense. I despise Trump, but I also really despise you. And so if you're going to counter-argue Trump, which I think you should do it in a way that's accurate and makes sense.